Hello, everyone. My name is Russ Petrus, and I am Executive Director of FutureChurch. And with me on tonight's call is Martha Liggis, who is one of our program associates. Martha, in particular, is in charge of our Pentecost project, which is a project that we launched last Pentecost, all about lifting up independent Catholic communities that are living out the faith in new and different and exciting ways in our church. And when the Roman Catholic Church, the institutional church, embarked on this 3-year implementation phase of the synod, Martha and I sort of schemed up together this idea that, well, there are so many of these communities out there who are already living in synodal ways. Even if they don't call it synodality, they are living and living out their faith in synodal ways. And so we wanted to highlight some of them. And for this first one, we thought we would take a look at maybe what is, for most people, one of the most visual, one of the most immediately seeable, experienceable ways of experiencing synodality, which is, of course, in the liturgy. We all attend liturgy, we're all a part of liturgy. So we've picked 4 really cool communities. By no means are these the only communities out there who are practicing synodality in their liturgies, but there are 4 that we happen to know of that we thought had really great stories to tell. So thank you to Shannon from the community of St. Hildegard, to Joe from the community of St. Peter, to Jane from WHIMM, which stands for Washington Home Inclusive Monthly Mass, and Richard and Bob from the Living Beatitudes Community. We're so excited to hear from all of you. And with that, welcome. I know we have a lot to do, so I'm going to turn things over to Martha, who will expertly lead us through the rest of the evening. Thanks, Martha. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's great to see you. As Russ mentioned, communities on the edges of things, communities on the margins are a passion of mine, both at FutureChurch and in my doctoral studies at Fordham University. Independent communities that are outside of, near the edges of, dance around the Catholic tradition really pull at my heart. So I'm grateful to gather with you all to highlight some of these communities. But before we begin, I'd like to lead us in prayer. I thought it was only fitting tonight, as we're talking about the gifts of the Spirit in and around the Pentecost season, to call upon the Spirit in our prayer. So let us pray. Loving God, as we prepare our hearts for Pentecost, let us open ourselves to your many gifts. Maybe listen to the ways that your Spirit speaks to and through us, and help us to be open to the creative wisdom of one another, so we may hear and learn from all of the ways that your Spirit still speaks. In your holy name we pray. Amen. So I am delighted tonight to get to introduce 4 incredible communities to you. Russ kind of ran down the list for us. We'll start with hearing from Shannon Sterringer at the community of St. Hildegard, followed by Jane Malhotra from Washington Home Inclusive Monthly Mass, then Reverend Joe Blatz from the community of St. Peter, and Richard Young and Bob Butts are representatives from the Living Beatitudes Community. So we'll start by turning the floor over to Shannon.
Okay, thank you, Martha and Russ and FutureChurch for inviting us to be a part of this. I just learned about 10 minutes ago that we're able to share our screens, and so I never miss an opportunity for some visuals, and I don't have a PowerPoint prepared or anything like that, but what I'd like to do, Martha gave us a task of taking about 10 minutes to introduce our community and what's special about it. And so what I'd like to do is pull up our website and let you get a visual of our space, our church building, and then I can talk through a little bit about briefly how we formed, and then have a second site that I just want to show to you that I'm very proud of that we launched last year, which is a tour through our space, and that'll make more sense here in a moment. So I'm going to share my screen a moment here, I think. Okay, so we are, as Martha and Russ said, of the community of St. Hildegard. We are in Fairport Harbor, Ohio. This is our church building here. Our church building was built in 1926 as a Byzantine Catholic church, and it existed as a Byzantine Catholic church until 2012. It closed in 2012 and fell into a little bit of disarray. And then when I was working on my doctoral work in 2015, 2016, had this inspiration to purchase the property, to renovate it, and to turn it into a space dedicated to the charism of St. Hildegard. At that time, I was still working for the Diocese of Cleveland and working at a couple of different parishes here in Northeast Ohio. And so we started to form what's now the Hildegard House out of a desire to offer a retreat space or a sacred space that would help to bring Hildegard's charism to the wider world. As part of that whole process, and I don't want to spend too much time on my personal story, but as part of that process, I discerned in 2018, well, it had been a long discernment process, about 10 years, but in 2018, discerned, made the decision through a discernment process to resign from my diocesan and parish positions and follow my call to ordained ministry. And of course, for all of you, you know where that leads in the Roman Catholic Church. Led very quickly to excommunication. However, as part of that, the community of St. Hildegard formed. So the community of St. Hildegard has been meeting. This is our website, hildegardhouse.com, has been meeting every Sunday for 11 o'clock at 11 o'clock for Zoom liturgies. And then we meet on Saturday evenings at 5 o'clock for in-person. So let me just show you what I want to show you visually so I can unshare the screen and be able to see all of you. I'll say more about our liturgy because I know that's our focus for tonight. But on our website, if you're interested, you can log on and you can scroll down and it has information about who we are, how we formed. We have a number of different tabs across the top if you want to, look at what we believe. We have engaged. One of the things in terms of this idea of synodality that I'm very proud of from our community is that we have invested a tremendous amount of time and energy into talking with one another and having these synodal type conversations, if you will. We call them town halls, but where we have over the last 5 years really looked at how do we feel about this idea of original sin? What do we believe about the sacraments? How do we understand ordained ministry? What is the role of a pastor? And as we, take time and talk about it and move to the next topic, it's sort of this, we continue to circle back and revisit it over and over again, because as we grow and mature as a community, our understanding of all these topics grow as well. So as we put on our website, these key points of what it is that we believe, none of them are written in stone. We're revising them and revisiting them as I said, as we're evolving as a community. But on our website, we have some information in terms of the different aspects of the space, even a little bit about how the space functioned before it became the church that it is now. We have our Zoom links and all that. But what I also want to show you is, so as I said, the property began to be transformed in 2016 as a space that would be dedicated to promoting Hildegard's charism. And then in 2019, it opened up as a worship community. But we didn't want to lose the shrine piece to St. Hildegard that we had been building. And so we really function in two ways. We have the worship community, and the worship community is both in person and Zoom, but then we also have a shrine. if you are interested, and this is the piece I'm very proud of, it was a year-long project and we had received a grant to complete it, but we have like a virtual Hildegard house tour. So you can log on to the site and you can learn all about the different parts of the space and what their connection is to Hildegard, and um, how we have sort of applied them to our mission here. So for example, if you go into the church, if you clicked on the church link, see here, it'll take you into the church building, and you can select what you want to look at in the church. You can, look at some of the outdoor pieces. You can look at, I think I'm outside right now. Oh no, I'm in church. You can look at, some of the art pieces that we have, the door plates, stained glass windows. For example, if you're interested, what the stained glass windows are, you would just click on stained glass windows and you're going to find visuals for them, text, and also an AI voice will tell you what they are. They'll read the text to you. So this is a really nice way if you're interested either in learning more about our community or learning about Hildegard of Bingen. I would highly recommend that you visit the Hildegard house tour. So I'll unshare here for a minute because I want to be sensitive to the time. In terms of our liturgy, we are if we state it very clearly on all of our websites, social media sites, that we are not affiliated with the Diocese of Cleveland. However, we definitely have a Catholic flavor, and most of our membership has come out of Catholic context. And so we're not really, I wouldn't say we're overly traditional, but we do tend to fall on the traditional side of the line in the sense that we adhere to the 3-year lectionary. We follow the liturgical calendar. We celebrate all the saints' feast days, not just Hildegard, though she does get the highlighted feast day. But we've tried to take our Catholic faith and make it a little more flexible, definitely inclusive. We use all inclusive language, which is it's a struggle, but it's also a gift. So in terms of the liturgical language that we use, and going back to this idea of synodality, we do have a liturgy committee that has been meeting every month for 5 years. And in that liturgy committee meetings, we put the scripts, we start with the NAB, or the New American Bible Translation, which is the liturgical language of the Roman Catholic Church. We start with that translation and we put it in our own inclusive language. And sometimes it's an easy month and, the first draft comes out and everybody's comfortable with it. And other times we end up spending hours, on one word, because as you know, when you're trying to put things in inclusive language, sometimes it changes the theological meaning of the text, or it even takes away from the richness of the text. And so we really work hard at making sure that we can, with the most amount of integrity, use liturgical language without losing the essence of what it is that we believe. Our liturgy, whether it's on Saturday night in person or Sunday on Zoom, is very participatory. As the pastor, I'm at most of the weekend liturgies. However, we also have concelebrants from the community who sign up to participate. We have, of course, lectors, cantors, people who sign up to at times do the opening prayer, the opening collect. We have a music ministry committee meeting that meets once a month and selects the music. And again, we work really hard when selecting the music to kind of keep the liturgical music in our liturgies that everybody is accustomed to and finds comforting, while at the same time paying attention to things like inclusive language, the theology. We try to not be too heavy on atonement theology, things like that. I guess I don't want to take up more than my amount of time, but it's what makes this community special, is that over the last 5 years, when we first formed, well, I will tell you, this is sort of a fun fact, but I worked at St. Anthony of Padua Parish for 22 years, and it's literally 2 blocks down the street from the Hildegard house. So I can see my old office from the front steps of the church. So that's been a little bit painful at times. It's almost like being able to see something and not being able to touch it any longer. But at the same time, it's also, it created a space where there's been a tremendous amount of local community support for what we're doing, because those 22 years of relationships run deep, even deeper than excommunication at times. But what's so special about it is it's it's a repurposed, if you will, Byzantine Catholic church. So our windows, have all the sacraments in it, and there's just a very sacred presence here. We also have the Hildegard piece. My PhD work is all in leadership theory, ethical and creative leadership, but I focused on the example of Hildegard. So I have a passion for Hildegard. So having a place dedicated to Hildegard's charism is really special. But really it's the community, the way the community has pulled together to try to figure out, how do we be Catholic in a new way? How do we be Catholic and at the same time, know that we're disconnected from the diocese or from the larger church in a very real way? How do we create space for everybody to share their gifts and talents in a way that fits our charism? And I'm not going to say we do it perfectly. We certainly don't. And, we've hit a lot of bumps along the way, but the community just seems to be willing to keep at it and keep doing the hard work of building it. And so we continuously revisit the liturgy to see if, we're getting off track in any way, if we're moving, too far to the left or the right in terms of our practice, so that we really stay true to what our mission statement says and who it is that we believe, at least at this point in our journey, that we are. So that is in a nutshell, in a very quick sketch, who we are. Sid, you're certainly welcome to check in on us anytime, see if there's anything that attracts you, either in person or online, and you can tour the church, you can visit a liturgy. In addition to the weekend liturgies, we also gather, it's less often in the summer, but during the wintertime, fall and winter, we gather once a week and we pray the rosary or vespers, and then we have faith forum, which it's like, it really was Bible study, but we found we were going off in all kinds of theological directions. And so we call it faith forum, so that we can incorporate both scripture and theology into our discussions. And those are really great sessions. And then we offer other opportunities throughout the month for adult education programs and things like that. So that's us in a nutshell. So I'm going to turn it over to whoever is coming next, and then I will be able to answer questions if you have any afterwards.
Shannon, thank you so much. I love every time you talk about Hildegard and Hildegard House, because your passion and call just shines through the screen. I was writing down notes as you were talking, and I just have to say a few that stood out. One, how do we be Catholic in a new way? How do we create space for everybody? And relationships run deeper than excommunication. That was powerful. Thank you. Lots to do in little time. So we're going to hand things over now to Jane, who is going to share with us a bit about the Washington Home Inclusive Monthly Mass, or WHIMM. So take it away, Jane.
Okay, thanks so much. What a privilege and an honor to be on this panel. I am Jane Varner Malhotra. I'm based in Washington, D.C., where we have a community that started in 2019 where we meet once a month in homes for a mass led by a woman priest. I'm going to share my screen and do a short little visual introduction. So on the right here is pictured my aunt. Her name is Anne E. Patrick, Sister of the Holy Names. She was a theologian and a feminist and a moral theologian. And her writings are really what inspired the start of our group. She talks about when you see injustice, you have a creative responsibility to respond, an invitation to respond in some creative way. And so while I was all about dismantling the Catholic patriarchy, I realized what she was writing about was more about making something new, making something different. And we, with my aunt and my Aunt Anne's youngest sister, my Aunt Mary Patrick, we decided to make it also fun. And so that's where the name WHIMM kind of gets its orientation. So this is a picture from our very first Mass in February of 2019. It was at my neighbor's house. she's an architect. She graduated from Catholic University. She's an amazing person, Camille, and she was willing to have a group of strangers in her home for a mass with the woman priest, and it really is what launched it all. Mary and I decided that we would just do 3 and see how it went. And so this was our first one, and pictured in the front with the green stole is Barbara Beatles. She's a Roman Catholic woman priest based in Maryland, and she's affiliated with Living Water Inclusive Catholic Community. So that's who has been kind of, we've mostly worked with to find our priests. And then we find people who are willing to open their doors like Camille did and gather with people. We started with some emails to friends, and word got spread quickly. And we have, we had about 25 people, I think, at this first Mass. The next Mass, it was a similar number with some new people coming in. And that's about our average. We have about 20 to 30 people at our Masses. Sometimes we'll do our Mass in an apartment, and we limit the number of people who can gather to something more like 15. But we have an email list that has about 500 people on it, who are mostly in the DC area, but we have people across the country who have just either moved away or heard about it from a friend, and we send emails out to that to our community every about 3 a month. So a little about, after those first 3 home masses, which went really well, and people were really electrified by the idea of having a mass, to just see a woman priest do the job, like maybe give a sleepy homily or a brilliant homily, but just like be a priest, to do that work. That's really our core mission, is to make visible and make known the call of all people, but particularly women, to ordained ministry in the Catholic Church. But the 4th month, we couldn't find anybody to host, and so we decided to have it in a park instead. Let me just move through my slides here a sec. So this was our 3rd Mass, I think. It was in somebody's. They have a row house, and their kitchen is an open kitchen, and so their altar was the kitchen counter. And that just seems so Christian in its origins, so much we know happens in the kitchen that is sacred. And so to just make it official with a Mass on the kitchen counter was pretty special. We also do Masses in backyards, especially during the pandemic. That's when we our first Masses after the pandemic. During the pandemic, we were on Zoom, and then after the pandemic, we started with Masses in backyards. But we did some in backyards before that too. This is in somebody's community room in their condo building in Virginia, Northern Virginia. And then what I was saying before is our 4th Mass, we had it in a park near the Vatican Embassy on Massachusetts Avenue. So we called it Mass on Mass on Mass. And after we gathered in the park, which actually the first one was in May, it was on Mother's Day, and it coincided with Vocation Sunday. It was in 2019. And we just felt like, wow, Mother's Day and Vocation Sunday come together. Here's when we should go big. And so after Mass, we had 2 priests can celebrate. And then after Mass, we walked down to the Vatican Embassy, which is just a couple blocks from there, and offered a blessing for the embassy. And that we continue to have the Mass on Mass twice a year, usually in May and October. And we walk down to the embassy and do some kind of creative action. And this Honk for Women Priests sign came up, I think it was about a year ago, that we decided to have some signs and have some fun with it. And you wouldn't believe the number of cars driving by. And it happens to be across from the Vice President's house in DC, if you're familiar with that. So anyway, horns blaring, people laying on their horns, honking, fist pumping. People are really longing for this kind of action. And so it's something really, especially in DC, it's nice to honk for something positive, a positive change right now. So that's the end of my sharing. So I'll stop sharing. And we have, as for Synodality, we created a couple years ago a donut. It's our leadership circle, and we meet monthly on Zoom. And donut is kind of connects to our logo too. And it's of course Catholic. So anyway, but that's where we got a little more uh, communal in our leadership style. And so we have a couple people who have ideas about liturgy and work on that, and we have a couple people who tend to be our music ministers, and they help pick out the music and lead our music. What am I forgetting? I could talk for probably a couple hours about this. So I'm going to wrap there and just say that we've had 60 masses now in dozens of homes in the DC area, and I always notice that almost every time we have a couple people who are new to this, and we have people who shed tears. And so that always keeps me going. Sometimes this work is a slog, as we all know. And I wanted to say one other thing. Today I was listening to the book Gathering Moss by Robin Wall Kimmerer, the one who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass. And I was thinking about this conversation tonight, and I think, are like moss. These we're on the margin of the stone, like the Vatican is, and the church can be sometimes like a rock, and we are the living, breathing, change makers on that surface of growing something new. So that's what I like to think about. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jane. I think you just gave me a dissertation title. The moss on the margin of the stone. How beautiful is that image? Wow, I'm gonna sit with that one for a while. All right, moving along. After hearing from WHIMM, our next guest tonight is Joe Blotz, here to represent the community of St. Peter. So Joe, thank you.
Well, good evening, friends. My name is Joe Blotz, and for the past 11 months, I've been part of the pastoral team at the community of St. Peter. I serve there along with Martha Ligas and Matthew Dolan, and it is a great honor to have such wonderful colleagues. The roots of the community of St. Peter are back in the Church of St. Peter, which was founded here in the Diocese of Cleveland in 1853. Primarily to serve German immigrants. And this is the interior of the church for probably the first 150 years of the life of that community. And then in the 90s, Father Bob Maroney was appointed pastor of St. Peter. And Bob was gifted in a number of ways as an artist, a scholar, and really as a liturgist. And with the community, he worked to really create St. Peter as a place of liturgical renewal. And one of his primary foci was this idea of the liturgy as something to be experienced in scent, in taste, in movement, in sound. And so the space they created was one in which the liturgy was really the focal point. The community gathered to celebrate the liturgy together. And you can see how the seating is in a monastic style where the community is facing one another as the celebrants of the liturgy. And during the Eucharistic prayer, the whole community moves to gather around the altar as they celebrate together the Eucharist. In 2007, Bishop Richard Lennon was appointed here to the Diocese of Cleveland, and by 2010 had implemented a consolidation plan which closed the community, or that closed St. Peter Parish. The community decided that it was going to continue to meet as a community and took that summer to decide what form that would take. And by August of 2010, they had secured a space in the historic Baker Electric Building, where they continued to gather for their first Eucharistic liturgy. We continued to meet in that same space. And our liturgy is, in some ways, fairly traditional, a fairly traditional Catholic liturgy. It's been described as monastic or streamlined, but we begin with an opening hymn, an opening prayer, move into a homily, which typically is shared either between myself or Martha on an every other week basis. Our prayers of the community have been described as homiletic. They really continue the message and incorporate that. As you can see, incense appeals to the senses, and it's used pretty liberally in the community of St. Peter, again, to engage the whole person. In terms of synodality, our leadership is shared not only among our pastoral team, but among the members of the community. When we celebrate the sacrament of reconciliation, members of the community are our ministers of reconciliation, as witnesses of God's mercy and forgiveness in our community. Again, gathered around a common altar. Our founding pastor, Father Bob Maroney, used the language of our community being about preserving and renewing a living tradition. And so I think what we are always living into and grappling with is, what is it that we preserve from our Catholic tradition and our Catholic rootedness? And what is it that we are called to renew as people of faith who continue to engage that tradition and live into a more inclusive, more just future. So as I look around this circle, I recognize that I am one of the people who has the least experience in this community. So as we continue to have conversation, I'm excited to have other people jump in and share their own experiences of what life is like for the community of St. Peter.
Beautiful, Joe. Thank you. You surprised me with pictures of myself, but it's always great to hear about the community of St. Peter and ways that we are living into a future yet unknown. To finish up our sharing this evening, I'd like to turn the microphone and the spotlight over to Richard and Bob, who are going to share with us a little bit about the Living Beatitudes Community. So Richard and Bob, it's all yours.
Hey, well, it's wonderful to be with all of you. I'm embarrassed that I don't have the technical skills to bring up our website and show it to you as our predecessors did. But it's livingbeatitudes.org, if anybody wants to look that up, livingbeatitudes.org. We've been together for 50 years, where it's our 50th anniversary this year. It started out as a community of strictly gay and lesbian people, LGBTQ plus folks. We are a chapter of Dignity USA. We are also a part of the Federation of Christian Ministries. We are also affiliated with the Roman Catholic women priests. We have drawn a few people to us from closed parishes, especially one in particular in the area that was very progressive. And so they like us, and they're a big part of our community. I know that we can talk forever about our chapter, but I know you want to focus on liturgy. I am one of 3 presiders in our community. I'm a priest. I'm a married priest. I'm married to Bob. We have another married priest who's married to a woman, and we have a lady who is interesting. She has an interesting background. She was a Roman Catholic canon lawyer for a number of years, and then she became a Lutheran pastor. And now she's a part of us, and she leads our liturgies. And all of our liturgies are co-presided. I always have a female co-presider, and we try to mix it up and have male and female presiders and co-presiders. We use inclusive language as much as possible. We have been doing that for years. We generally use the lectionary that has come out from Priests for Equality a number of years ago, and we make some adjustments to that sometimes as necessary. We've written our own Eucharistic prayers. We have a whole slew of them that we use. And back in the pandemic, all of our liturgies were strictly on Zoom for our safety. And after we started to meet back together again, we continued that. We didn't want to lose our people that we gathered on Zoom. So all of our liturgies are both in person and on Zoom. And typically we'll get around 50 people between what we have in person and what we have on Zoom. We get people on Zoom from all over the country joining us. Jersey. We were in Italy last month, and we joined our community from there. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, it was 10 o'clock here, but we joined them for liturgy. We have a variety of people who are really good preachers, and we use all of them. I preach pretty regularly, and so do the other 2 presiders. But we like to include other folks, and we do as a lot of that. Let's see, what else? You want to add something?
Yes, our liturgies, I often say, are a cross between Mass and a Quaker meeting. We have participatory homilies, meaning after the presider gives the homily, we react. We have a podium and we have a microphone, and that's also included the people on Zoom. It makes it very much a lively discussion, as well as extremely participatory. I know synodality is the word of the day here, but I think we embody that very, very well. We also have, like probably many of your communities, social justice committee, liturgy committee, social committee, and we make the liturgy happen, and it's quite participatory. It can have the flavor sometime of a Catholic Mass, or sometimes when one of our presiders, Anne Marie, is preaching, there's a little bit of evangelical and there's a little bit of Lutheran.
Yeah.
So, I will say this, I'm interviewing people for the 50th anniversary project, and the secret of our success is that we didn't make it all about orientation.
Mm-hmm.
We made it all about inclusivity. So
we have a couple of Roman Catholic women priests among us. They are in their 80s and they prefer not to preside anymore. But once in a while, we'll hear them preach, and that's good. We're grateful for that. And as I say, we've been around a long time. When we started out, we were almost all gay and almost all men. It was hard to get women to join us. And then when we had married priests preside, they brought their wives, and then that way a woman didn't feel like she was the only one on there anymore, because we had the wives. And we use, as I say, a lot of inclusive language. We have a little choir. Typically, we'll get about half a dozen people to lead us in music, and all of our liturgies, we have to put together a PowerPoint every Sunday so that everything can go on the screen for the music and for the Eucharistic prayer, so that people can participate in that. And so it's very, very inclusive. We involve a lot of people in everything, and we don't ever want to forget our Zoom people. We invite them to comment, do their petitionary prayers, do a reading, whatever. We get them involved as well.
Explain how we do the Eucharist
Oh, the Eucharist, what do you have in
with
mind?
the Zoom people.
Oh yes, well, when we have those Zoom people with us, we always remind them to have the Eucharistic elements with them, so that we consecrate them. We consecrate them through cyberspace, and and then they receive with us when it's time to do that. So and we do other sacraments as well. We have a confirmation coming up this coming Sunday for someone in our community, and we've done weddings and funerals. We've done a variety of things. So we're very proud of our community. It's come a long way, and when you walk into our worship space, which is the lower level of a downtown Episcopal church, and they've all been great to us there. When you walk in there, it feels like walking into a TV studio where there's a big old camera there, we try to get everybody on the screen as much as possible, it's a great community. We're just really, really proud of it, and Dignity USA on a national level is too. We are going to be having our National Dignity USA National Conference in the Columbus area, Dublin, Ohio, the 4th of July weekend, and so we're just very proud of that. It's the first time we've had one in Ohio, and so lots of good things are happening. Lots of good things. Anything else? No. Okay.
Great, Richard and Bob, thank you. I like you reminded us, you said the words, we make the liturgy happen. This reminder that liturgy is a work of the people. I think that really is clear in your sharing. Now that we've gotten at least a little introduction from our 4 communities, I want to turn the spotlight over to Russ, who will help to lead our Q&A tonight.
Thanks, Martha, and thank you everyone who's shared so far. As Martha mentioned, we are going to turn things over to you, the Future Church community, for any questions or comments that you might have for our panelists. And I think what I'll do is I'll just bring everyone up onto the screen. That way I don't have to keep flipping through spotlights, and we can spend more time on your questions and comments. I see that there are some questions going on in the chat, so I'm going to kind of get to those and see what's going on over there. But I see Audrey's got her hand up, so I'm going to toss it over to Audrey, and you can all engage with Audrey a little bit. I'll check out the chats, and I'll be right back. Audrey, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Any of the 4 communities have pursued incorporation and pursuing a 5013 status for tax deduction purposes?
Yes, we have that. Yes, we have that.
Yeah, we do as well. Under the IRS guidelines, a church automatically falls under 501c3, but a couple of years ago, we felt it would be wise to actually apply for the 501c3. So we did that a couple of years ago.
Thanks.
We have not done it, but it's something we talk about.
Great. Good question, Audrey. I see in the chat that there's a question here about how your communities are, how do they put it? How are they an expression of Eucharist beyond worship? How are your communities an expression of Eucharist beyond worship? And I guess that's a good one for all 4 of you.
Well, I'll be real simplistic
Russ,
here.
are you going to call on us, or do you want us?
You can do a popcorn style. Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. You go first. Yeah, Richard and Bob.
We we are very blessed to have people who will cook a meal for us after liturgy. And my own way, I look at that and I say, what happens around the altar happens around the table. And what happens around the table happens around the altar. It's very much, we are fed.
I'll go next. Richard and Bob, thank you for reminding me. One thing I didn't share is, as you expressed, we also invite so Sunday we do not live stream our liturgies. I saw some of the comments in the chat. We have our liturgies on Zoom, and so it's very participatory on Zoom. But one of the things that we've always, from the beginning of the pandemic to today, has encouraged anyone joining on Zoom to please bring their Eucharistic elements to the screen and break bread with us, because it seems ridiculous that only those of us physically in the building should be receiving Eucharist. But one of the things that we highlight in throughout our liturgy is that we're not only consecrating and the Eucharistic elements on the table, but through receiving them, we're becoming the body of Christ. And so at a number of different places in our liturgy, we are reminded that we are the body of Christ, as much as the elements on our altars. So that's one way. And then of course we also have Social Justice Committee and other groups within the community that are out in the world in very different ways, trying to embody what it means to be Eucharist for others.
And our prayers all often reflect that, or they're very social justice oriented. The prayers that we use during the liturgy, reminding people, especially in the Eucharistic prayer itself, reminding people that we have to feed the world. We have to feed the world beyond ourselves. Yeah.
We always have a fellowship social hour after our Mass with snacks and things. And I also want to note that our tables are inclusive. This is probably true for everybody here, but anybody can come to the table. And for a lot of people who come to our Masses have a partner who's not Catholic, so we've had a lot of first communions at our table, and that's pretty
Very
cool.
nice.
Children, young children can come and have the Eucharist. So
And one of the things I think I try and talk about is that in liturgy, we practice what it means to be a Christian every day. We practice what it is to be forgiving, having received God's forgiveness. We practice what it means to feed, just as we are fed, to welcome, just as we are welcomed in baptism. And so, as Richard and Bob, you said, that's part of being the body of Christ. We are consecrated in the liturgy to go out into the world and to live as Christ in the world.
Amen.
Great, thanks everyone for that. It's just scrolling back up in the chat a little bit, saw some questions. I responded a little bit to it, but about resources. Are there inclusive resources? I think Richard and Bob, you mentioned you use the inclusive lectionary, but are there prayer resources, liturgy resources, scripture resources that your community turns to? Any favorites that you'd like to shout out?
Usually I compose my own orations, my own prayers for the liturgies, and that way I'm sure they'll be inclusive and all that. But sometimes I'll take prayers that are already written and I'll adapt them. One of our really great co-presiders, who was also one of our preachers occasionally, she is a lawyer, so she's great with words, and she's really great at finding excellent prayers to use for our liturgy. So we're very blessed that way.
We also will have presiders that frankly ignore the readings because they're not really as inclusive, and we'll come up with inspired type readings. They'll do like Thich Nhat Hanh, a couple others.
Richard Rohr, things like that.
Yeah, the saints,
we use the comprehensive Catholic lectionary that the Women's Ordination Conference has on their website. It's an optional fee. We pay it because we use it so much and are grateful for it. I think it was Jane Villa and somebody else who put that together. I'm sorry, I don't remember the other person's name, developed that a few years ago. And then we use for our liturgy something that was developed through the two of the women priests at Living Water, Andrea Johnson and Gloria Carpenetto. But we also modify things here and there, and we pull in other readings to be creative.
So we do a lot of adapting. As I said, our liturgy committee works on that, and our liturgy chair has been very diligent about like all of those readings and that we have already put into, we call them modified readings, but we've already adapted. He's collecting them, in a Google Drive, so that once we complete the full through the first 3 years, we did use the inclusive lectionary. And then it's been really a good practice for us to be working on our own. But he's accumulating them so that once we finish the 3-year cycle, we'll have them moving forward. And again, as we grow and evolve, we're probably go back and when we start that 3-year cycle again and maybe adapt some of them further and things like that.
I should point out that we have our sermons are always online. You can go to our website and you can listen to the sermon, but if you weren't able to be there on Sunday. So that's good. Get a lot of good feedback on that. A number of people want to listen to those.
And like others, we use the inclusive lectionary as our scripture texts from Priests for Equality and FutureChurch. And then I'm actually an ordained pastor of the United Church of Christ. And so the UCC Book of Worship is a fully inclusive liturgy that I often draw on as we're praying together, particularly throughout the Triduum. We draw on that resource quite a bit.
Great, thanks everyone. That's it's striking me that maybe there's an opportunity for a library of all these independent communities to share resources. Maybe something like that exists. I don't know, Martha, if you know of something like that, you would probably be the best person positioned to know that. Let's see, we do have 3 more hands up, and I want to make sure that we get them in too, if that's all right with all of you. Let's go to Rita here real quick. Let me bring you up on the screen. Oh, Rita, where'd you go?
Sorry, I just lowered my hand.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It just moved your window. I'll bring you up on screen here.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, everybody. This has been really intriguing. Thank you so much for organizing this. Sorry, I have my iPad in a different position today. So I have 2 questions. One, first, I'm really glad to hear about the inclusive people using the inclusive lectionary. But unfortunately, even though it says inclusive, it's inclusive language, but it's not inclusive of all the women who are omitted from the Roman Catholic Sunday lectionary. And so, in fact, I'm hopefully going to be meeting with Russ pretty soon for follow-up on our, and Martha also was there, for follow-up on our petitioning and meeting in Rome for advocating to, add all the women to the Sunday and the holy days. We're trying to develop like 12 easy things you can do with very little change to the lectionary. And so that will be, I think, a very big thing to do. Hopefully, I may even be presenting this to a small group at the Association for U.S. Catholic Priests in late June. But so I'd like to get your reaction to that. And maybe some of you are doing this already. Some of these changes, for example, in the Exodus reading for the 2 midwives are just sliced out of that reading, and that can be put right back in because it's a very neat slicing. Phoebe, actually, that's another whole topic because she's been omitted from a Saturday, and she should be absolutely on a Sunday, along with all the other women from Romans 16. So there's, my question is, are you doing something on the women missing, and are you interested in follow-up from FutureChurch on that? And then the second part of my question is, the Catholic Women Preach project, which really started out of FutureChurch, and then has been augmented, but it wouldn't exist without Russ, and it wouldn't have existed without the FutureChurch Board of Directors voting to put our money on that. Do any of you use those materials for homilies or for worship aids, as well as maybe, group discussions? So those are my questions. Thank you.
I'll start. Rita, I love Catholic Women Preach, so I do listen to those homilies, and some really wonderful homilists in the in that collection. So yes, that's, I think, a very valuable resource. We have at times one of members of our liturgy committee made sure that Mary Magdalene made it back into the Sunday morning readings, because she got sliced out. And so we did, as you said, when they're sliced out, it's very easy to add them back in. So there are key moments like Easter morning that we're, more conscious of it. But I think I speak on behalf of the Hildegard House Liturgy Committee that if FutureChurch had a resource for easy ways to do that, that we would certainly be interested in that.
We make it a point to use to mention the matriarchs as well as the patriarchs whenever we get whenever we do they're mentioned in the readings or in the Eucharistic prayer.
And I think sometimes the Revised Common Lectionary does a little bit better job of including the stories of women, and so oftentimes we'll expand the readings to match better the Revised Common Lectionary.
Great, thanks.
The Comprehensive Catholic Lectionary does a good job with that, with making sure women are at the forefront of the stories. I gave a presentation a few years ago at our parish. I wanted to mention one thing about WHIMM is that because we just meet once a month, a lot of people in our community maintain their one foot in their parish, in their neighborhood parish. We have some people who are long gone from their parish, but a lot of people stay in their parish and talk about what we're up to. So it kind of feeds the information out there, makes people really nervous sometimes. But anyway, I gave a presentation at Holy Trinity with my friend Liz McCluskey a few years ago about the selectionary. Basically, how just,
fabulous.
You can usually figure out what are the important parts by the verses that have been cut out with the X-Acto knife. So feel free to use that word loosely.
I'm going to steal that term. Thank you. That's a great term. Thank you.
Thanks, Rita. Great question. All right, and Jan, I see you don't have your camera on. That's fine, but go ahead. Oh, no, you're on.
I'm here.
Whichever you would prefer. Go ahead, and let me bring you up on screen then in that case. And you can ask your question or make your comment.
Well, it's a combination of both. I live in the southwest part of the country, and out here it seems like we have fewer options than you do back east or in the Midwest, especially Ohio, I think has a lot. During the pandemic, I took classes from Shannon when she was offering them. And I also lived in New Mexico for a while, so I used to attend Mass with Father Ann. So I've had a lot of exposure, but there's nothing available here for me, which is really lacking and sad. And I'm always looking for that. But my real question is about the Iona liturgy. Richard Rohr uses the Iona liturgy very heavily, and I love that liturgy. And I'm just wondering if any of these groups have tried or experimented with using a liturgy like that feels much more inclusive than the Roman Catholic liturgy.
I've read about the Iona liturgy from Richard Rohr, but I don't remember much about it. Maybe you can enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, but I did just want to say that as far as building a community like what we did with WHIMM, we really started with a priest and a few friends, and it grew, So a lot of the Roman Catholic women priests that I've encountered over the years don't have a community. It's, many do, but many don't. They're ordained, but so it takes, I think, both a priest and a group of friends to get it going. And it's a beautiful partnership when it happens because, like I said, word spreads and you may find you're building a community. And if you want to, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you walk that through.
Yeah.
And Jan, if I could just extend an invitation. So for our Sunday Zoom liturgy, we have members all over the world, really, but definitely all over the country, and many who maybe have made a pilgrimage to the Hildegard house, or a couple of them, but others who may never get physically to the space, which was another reason we wanted to create that Hildegard tour, so that our Zoom community can kind of jump in the church anytime that they're feeling they need a fix, if you will. But we certainly extend an invitation, and I know, there's a lot of conversation around, can a Zoom liturgy really replace the experience of an in-person? And many of our Zoom members here have expressed that, they feel as intimately connected to the community at times, if not more so, through the Zoom experience than even when they were, attending a traditional diocesan parish. So while you're searching for a place out west, you certainly are welcome to join the community of St. Hildegard at 11 o'clock Eastern time on any given Sunday. So
We're 10 o'clock Eastern
Yeah, we're
time,
10.
and you're welcome to us too.
you can go all day on Sunday, Jan. Just jump around.
I can go from church to church to church.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right now I go to a monastery for mass, a Benedictine monastery. I can't tolerate diocesan churches. It's been years since I went in one. But monasteries I can tolerate, but I find that I don't fit in because my thinking is too progressive. And although you all are saying that, you hold to the old traditions, and I know some of you do, progressive thought has to do with women priests, inclusivity at the table, married priest, gay priests. It has to do with inclusivity to me. And I think that that's the progress the church has hindered and held back from.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I don't fit there.
Yeah. I was the chair of chapter services for Dignity USA for a while. And I would oftentimes, we would have people exactly where you are. It's like, where can I go if there wasn't a Dignity community? There's a site called Alternative Catholic Experiences. And I'm not going to tell you you're going to get everything you want. Some of these folks are more traditional than you may want. There are small groups of communities, just like these gathered here, that meet all over the country, all over the world. So, and it's just it's a clearinghouse for you if you want to look.
Yeah. And just
Alternative
to make a point.
Can you say it again? Alternative?
Sure. Alternative Catholic Experiences.
Okay, I'll look it up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Russ. There it is right there in the chat.
Okay, good. Just a point, and all conservative doesn't, traditional doesn't always mean conservative. Sometimes you get, people are very much into the tradition, but they do it in a very creative way. And so some of these folks, give them a chance. They just might be more what you're looking for than you think. Yeah.
I think part of it is you're not familiar with Arizona, where we had a very conservative archbishop.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the Latin Mass took off here, and we have huge Latin churches here. And they're just awful, to say the least. So, traditional here to me means the old Latin Catholic Church.
Yeah. We like to think of our own community as very traditional in the sense that we are like the original tradition, the Jesus and his disciples. It's as traditional, that's about as traditional as you can get.
Well, meeting in homes.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah.
And
Well,
to that, Jan, when I said that, oh, I'm sorry, Russ.
No, go ahead, Shannon.
I was just going to
I'll-
say, you know, when I said we fall on the traditional side, we do in terms of preserving the traditions, but we do not use the Roman Missal. We have rewritten it, you know, completely to use inclusive language and things like that. And so, you know, I would agree with, you know, what was just said, that traditional doesn't equate with conservative. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you, Jan. Very good question. And I did put one more link into the chat. It's a link to the Ecumenical Catholic Communion in the chat. And they are very closely connected with the Catholic tradition. And they do have a strong presence in Arizona. So you might want to check them out. All right. I see, Audrey, you had perhaps a follow-up question. We'll go to Audrey, and then I'll turn things over to Martha to wrap us up.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's not follow-up, Russ. It's a brand new subject. Do any of you have experience with families, young families with young children, in terms of baptisms and first Eucharists and faith formation around those events?
We're old. We're sorry, we're just old. But
I know we all are.
yeah, we're surprised to see somebody under 50 show up at our living.
Martha's the young one.
Yeah.
Wait, that is when they were talking about a vision and hope for the future. We're primarily baby boomer and above. I mean, that we see that. I mean, I'm looking at Shannon and I'm looking at Martha thinking, these are young people interested in the faith. We rarely see young people.
Mhm.
So,
We have them.
but
So I'll go next. We've had, I've had I mean, it was a great joy, you know, on the couple of occasions, and I hope they're not, you know, they're not over. We'll have more, but where I've had an opportunity to celebrate first communions and baptisms. We don't have a large number of young families. We do have a family that comes on Saturdays in person that has 2 young children. And so we've had, you know, a handful, but part of the issue, you know, in my previous life, I was a diocesan catechist, and so I worked with very large catechetical programs, and we had resources, you know, we had books and movies and films, and it's really hard. This has been my experience when I do have somebody here who presents themselves for Eucharist, or, you know, a second grader. A couple of times we've had a second grader family bring them for communion. Because I have to create the resources for them as we go. I meet individually with them because we just don't have that. So I think one of the, you know, future projects for one of our communities, or maybe a collective of our communities, is to create like resources, you know, and just that's, you know, because the traditional institutional Catholic resources don't fit us, and neither do the Protestant resources necessarily. And so we're just in this weird space that when those families do approach, we don't have always the materials we need to make their journey a little richer. But further than that, I think, you know, one of the things, because we're attracting Catholic members, I think we'll probably always be a little bit older of a community, because we can't compete with, you know, what the young families are looking for, like Catholic schools and sports programs, you know, CYO and things like that. And so, you know, I love when there's a young children in the church. It makes me so excited. But at the same time, I also recognize that we'll likely always be a little bit older community, where people can come when their kids are grown, and now it's time for them to really wrestle and work on their own faith and what it is that they've been struggling with over the years. So.
Okay. We have several young families who are involved with WHIMM, and I really try to nurture that. I'm always grateful when they're with us, when we have kids, especially at our park masses. A lot of them come. And something that we're aiming to do as a community is to make our community look more like our community. We're pretty white, and we have some diversity, but not a lot. But our city sure does. So, and our Catholic Church here does. So that's something that we hope to improve in the years to come.
So
Thank you all.
Bob put down in the notes that he and Martha led a First Communion class about 3 years ago for our first communicants. So that's something that's the practice of the community. And then each Sunday we have a lectionary-based resource for young children and families that is distributed with our bulletin. So families can engage in that way as well.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you, everyone. And I'm going to let Martha take it away here.
Yeah, I actually have one more closing question that I'd like to pose to each of you to kind of wrap us up tonight. Thinking again about Pentecost and the gifts of the Spirit, I'm wondering, what do you think for you and for your community is the greatest gift of being independent from the diocese?
Creativity. It just frees us to be as creative as we want to be, as the Spirit leads us to be. I think that's our gift.
Yeah.
I would say the freedom to celebrate an open table and to make the sacraments available to anyone who approaches, and so I think just that freedom to open our doors and open our tables.
I think there's something really special about the intimacy of home liturgies, and then on top of that, or alongside that, the kind of revolutionary act of having a person who's called to priesthood be the priest and do the and take us all along on that liturgy is really something that we can't do with the diocese, but we do want to let them know that we're doing it. I think they know, but that's another part of our work, I think.
And I think it's the gift of being able to model what a new church might look like, whether that be having women preach regularly, having an inclusive table, having gluten-free bread and non-alcoholic grape juice that's consecrated each week so that there's no barriers to people's reception of the Eucharistic feast. Some of these things are bigger hills to climb, and some of them are not. And we can model for all of our Christian siblings what a more inclusive church could be.
Thank you. Great answers to the question. And thank you so much for your sharing tonight. I speak for myself, but I don't think I speak just for myself when I say how inspiring it is to know that, even though a lot of us are central in Ohio by the luck of the draw on this panel, to know that really all across the country, there are these little communities doing the good work in our pockets and in our corners, modeling what we believe the church could look like. So on behalf of all of us at FutureChurch and all of us in the big FutureChurch community, special big thank you to Shannon, to Jane, to Joe, to Richard and Bob, and your communities for speaking, for being with us, and for sharing all that you are. And thanks to everybody for coming out tonight, or this afternoon, or this morning, depending on where you're calling in from. We couldn't be FutureChurch without you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.